Hello, everyone, and welcome to uh, my first live stream on my YouTube channel here, Isle of Arran, and I I don't know if we'll end up mirroring this elsewhere. We might. I'm currently on a call with Analytic Alchemist and Mr. Brass. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, and kind of you know, let people know where they can find you online.
Yes, for me, hello there, everyone. This is Mr. Brass. And yes, I have my own channel. It's named right after me, Mr. Brass. I do a series on multiple things, whether it be um, sociology, theology, or just philosophy at times. Um, I'm thinking about going into politics in terms of YouTube topics some down the road, but I'm more focusing on the philosophy and theology parts for now.
And how about you? Can we do you mind if we use your real name, or how would you like to be referred to, Analytic Alchemist?
Yeah, sure. We can just use my YouTube alias for now. Yep, I am the Analytic Alchemist, and my YouTube channel at the moment is a barren wasteland. I have no content whatsoever, so go check it out and subscribe.
Okay, but you've joined in on some live streams with the Red Pill Religion team, right? On the Red Pill Religion YouTube channel.
Yeah, I've been a part of numerous podcasts on the Red Pill Religion channel, um, and I will be uploading content to my channel soon. It's just I'm trying to work on getting adequate recording equipment and whatnot. So
Okay, so today's or this evening's topic of discussion is something I've been wanting to do a video about for quite some time. It actually relates to the last video I uploaded on the Google smart homes, and just smart technology in general, and what's been happening with all of the censorship that's been going on with Google and YouTube. And there's an article I found, thankfully, which pretty much goes into all of it, or most of what I wanted to discuss. And then there's other topics on the side that I think I'll also tie in with this pretty heavily. And the title of the article I'm running with here is Unmasking YouTube, Google, CIA, and CERN. And it's on a blog called Lipstick Alley. And it's a really interesting article. And again, it goes into a lot of what I've been kind of tying together. And there's other people who I have other connections of mine who have also brought this up, for many years, how there's all these strange ties with CERN, and just kind of strange ties like the Lego movies. A really interesting example. There's Morgan Freeman in the Lego movie, or
So
his voice of one of the characters. It was the character was Vitruvius, a wizard promoting the prophecy. And he also visited CERN. There's some, I think, science, I can't remember if it's a series or just a one-time kind of special thing where he visits CERN. And then there's this guy who works for Trump, who is the executive, I think, producer of the Lego movie. Let me just double check here. His name is Stephen. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Munchin. Let's see here. Munition is how you pronounce his last name. Stephen Munition. And he is the currently the 77th Secretary of Treasury, and he also produced. He's the executive producer of the Lego movie. So just random things like that. And then, there's also a character in the Lego movie that apparently resembles Trump. I can't remember which character it is offhand. So that's just a little strange to me. And then just going by this article, I'm going to see if I can screen share it. I'm still kind of, here we go. Yeah. So let's just open the windows here. And, all right. So this is the, my web brain here on CERN. Can you guys see that? Or I don't know if you think, I hope you can see it. Should be able to. But I have a web brain open. It's a web brain database that I'm using. And thanks, shout out to Jan Irvin with Logos Media. He has a web brain database on his website that has a lot of extensive research into MK Ultra and the CIA, and I learned about this software through him, and it's really great software. And but what you're looking at right now is the database or the entries that I have on CERN, and there are some interesting ties with CERN and YouTube and Google. And the main tie, the main person that ties it together is a guy named Stanley Wojcicki. He is the former chair of physics at the Department of the former chair of the physics department at Stanford University. A Harvard graduate, and he worked for CERN. And of course, CERN pretty much created the World Wide Web. The guy who created the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, worked for CERN while he was doing it. He did it so that they could, basically, I don't remember. Do either of you guys remember exactly what the purpose was? It had something to do with keeping track of data.
I think that originally the World Wide Web was more of a thing for the military in order to track data across countries.
Well, and Tim Berners-Lee.
Oh, and by the way, I thought
his entry.
I thought for a minute there you had said Stan Lee.
No, Tim Berners-Lee. He is the inventor of the World Wide Web. And here's what it says on his Wikipedia entry. Well, he was the board. He worked on a number of projects and works in a number of projects, and he let's see, he works for MIT. He's the senior, what is it? The founder of the World Wide Web Foundation and senior researcher and holder of the 3Com Founders Chair at the MIT Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. So he works for MIT, and I'm just trying to find his work with CERN here, but he worked for CERN. Here we go. Berners-Lee worked as an independent contractor at CERN from June to December 1980. While in Geneva, he proposed a project based on the concept of hypertext to facilitate sharing and updating information among researchers. To demonstrate it, he built a prototype system named Enquire. After leaving CERN in late 1980, he went to work at John Poole's Image Computer Systems Limited, but he got started working for CERN, and it says here that he returned to CERN in 1984, and in 1989, CERN was the largest internet node in Europe, and Berners-Lee saw an opportunity to join hypertext with the internet. And it has a quote of his here. But if I'm not mistaken, the World Wide Web was created initially for the purposes, I think, of keeping better track of data for the Hadron Collider, I think that CERN was working on, or for CERN itself. I don't remember which. And so, there's that element of all of this, as far as the World Wide Web goes, and its connection with CERN. Are you okay? So, Analytic Alchemists, are you based, and aren't you based around that area, around the area where like MIT is, and a lot of these computer scientists and AI tech kind of gurus are centered?
Yeah. So I'm over on the East Coast in Massachusetts, and MIT, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is over in Cambridge, which is only about an hour or so drive from where I'm situated. So I'm sort of in the belly of the beast, so to speak. Yeah.
So yeah, they're and I have seen some of your posts about how they're implementing these robots and in all of these stores around there, like Marty, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's kind of one of the main testing grounds, outside of Silicon Valley and all of these other smart cities.
Yeah.
And I know Cambridge, Massachusetts, is one of the many cities that are signed up in the ICLEI program, which is it's a sustainable cities initiative. I've discussed it on a past stream with I Am Serious and Lamprey Milt in the context of Portland Would also discuss Vancouver, and but there's a number of cities signed on to that, and it's on right here on the screen. You can see it. Hopefully, it's the Local Governments for Sustainability, and it's a United Nations plan, and it dates back to Agenda 21, and now it's Agenda 2030, and there's, like it says here, the network includes more than 1,750 local and regional governments in 100 plus countries. So it's pretty big. And
that's what she
said.
That
but yeah, but I think there's a direct with Igley, and this plan for all these smart cities everywhere, and CERN and Stanley Wojcicki, they're tied to Google because his daughter, one of his daughters, Susan Wojcicki, and actually, what I'll go ahead and do is just start reading this article now, because it pretty much goes in to how they're all tied. And thanks to Bubbly Flute, is who posted this article, whoever you are. It's a great article, and basically, so he breaks it down with YouTube. There's all these headings. You can see it on the screen here, and so it starts with currently the public seems apathetic to the supreme power amassed by Google. We have even adopted Google as a verb within our common language. If we want to research something, we just say Google it, setting a precedent that the only valuable way to educate ourselves is through the use of the Google search engine. Perhaps society does not realize how many companies and projects Google is correlated with, or how much we as taxpayers contribute to their colossal power. And then there's YouTube. Let's begin with examining YouTube as a company. YouTube's current CEO is Susan Wojcicki, whose claim to fame was supposedly renting out her garage to Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Sergey Brin, also just as a side note, is, I believe, the current director of Alphabet Inc. Yeah. Let's see. I think he's either the director or the CEO. He's the founder. So yeah, he's the founder of Alphabet Inc. along with Larry Page. And Alphabet Inc. is huge. There's people who have brought up how they're basically the same as the NSA. And so Wojcicki rented out her garage to both of the founders, and was married to Sergey Brin, I believe. Let me just double check on that. Oh, yeah. No, actually, it was her sister. Her sister, Anne Wojcicki, was married to Sergey Brin. And when Google took off, Wojcicki found herself in an executive position with the company as vice president of advertising and commerce. She contributed in large part to the creation of Google Image Books, AdSense, and Analytics. In 2007, she brokered the $3.1 billion deal to buy DoubleClick, a massive advertisement agency providing services to companies such as Microsoft, GM, Apple, Motorola, etc. Only later would the public find out that Google was selling off consumer information to these and other advertisers. Google Video was receiving steep competition from the startup company YouTube. In 2006, Wojcicki decided to purchase the company, making it an additional subsidiary. Still CEO of Google at the time, Eric Schmidt assisted Wojcicki in effectively launching YouTube on a global scale. By 2014, Wojcicki decided to take over the company and became the CEO of YouTube. Time has referred to her as the most powerful woman on the internet. Additionally, with her $410 million net worth, she has easily become one of the most powerful women in the world. Though with her husband, Dennis Troper, also being a Google executive, specializing in Android wear, it is likely they have attained even greater wealth. Additionally, their foundation, the Troper and Wojcicki Foundation, is publicly inaccessible. It has no website, address, or even a board of directors to view. The sole way to find the foundation is through bridge.org, Basic Registry of Identified Global Entities. Yet another elitist foundation, reminiscent of their pay-to-play pals Eric Schmidt and Hillary Clinton, who have set up foundations for all of their money needs. Nevertheless, the power of YouTube and sharing of ideas has become abundantly clear. This is why dozens of countries around the globe, including Russia and Germany, have censored YouTube at one time or another. Other countries have the platform completely banned from its citizenry, and some, such as Armenia, have been known to block the site around election time to prevent the free flowing of information. According to Alexa Internet, the video sharing platform is listed as #2 on the highest rated websites in the world. It comes as little surprise then that Wojcicki would want to ban YouTube users who do not conform to the Google agenda. That has been happening like crazy recently. There's been news about it all over. People like Steven Crowder are getting banned. Who else? Just all kinds of YouTube users. I think even. Do you have any other YouTube user or YouTubers in mind, Mr. Brass, who have been getting banned?
I know Dennis Prager has been getting a lot of trouble from Google. It's mainly more conservative YouTubers that are getting it the worst.
Yeah, and the way I put it, just before we started the stream with you, Analytic Alchemist, was like it's like anybody who doesn't conform to their narrative, and if you take the time to research all of the different individuals and organizations who are behind eugenics programs, population control, and using environmentalism and conservationism as a front, to kind of carry out their agenda. They all own. I mean, a lot of them, not all, but many of them are connected to, the bio or the or the fossil. I don't even like to use the word fossil fuels, but the petroleum industry, the energy industry, and I think in this case, the nuclear energy industry, obviously. And CERN has 23 member countries listed. The last one to be listed is Israel. Now, nothing against Israel. As far as it just being a homeland for the Jews, and I am, of course, part, at least, like, born into a Jewish family. I'm not necessarily in agreement with a lot of their policies, though, and in this case, I think there's even people who are Jewish who live who are Israeli citizens who would probably disagree with a lot of their policies um, for different reasons. But in this case, I think there's how can I put this? Kind of I mean, Israel's always been influential for obvious reasons. I would hope to many listeners out there, because of its role as the a Jewish state, and the fact that it's kind of a gateway to Europe, Africa, and Middle Eastern, Asian countries, and it's historical and religious role in the world is obviously really significant, and so there's like, look at Genie Energy, for example, and all the people who run Genie Energy and who sit on the board of Genie Energy. They're really powerful individuals, and Genie Energy has interests in the Golan Heights, where Israel's basically been wanting control over that area. And as far as CERN goes, I don't know. There's different information I've seen online. There's a YouTuber by the name of Rise, I think it is, who there was a video on his channel at one point. I don't know if it was taken down or what, with a woman who lives in Israel, who was talking about some strange kind of things going on there with I don't know, something she had seen in an area where there's supposed to be some kind of it had to do with the Jordanian president, and how Jordan also signed up with CERN, and there's some kind of I wish I could remember what it is. I would have to get back to my listeners on that, but just kind of strange things associated with CERN in Israel. And then there's 22 other countries who are signed up, and from what I've read about CERN, it's not so much, I mean, they're researching particle physics, and the Large Hadron Collider was purposely built, or intentionally built, to recreate the conditions that existed during the supposed time of the Big Bang, when our universe was created. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they actually did conduct an experiment that was successful in that regard. I don't remember. Let's see. Just do either of you two know?
Not really sure exactly. I do know that these big tech companies are seemingly getting more and more powerful as the day goes by, and it doesn't really that the government is the one that's really pumping it in there.
Yeah, there's there's definitely been successful experiments. There's one I just found on the futurity.org website, which you should see on my screen here. That it's about, it's from let's see, where's the date? I can't seem to find the date on this, but but it goes into, you know, one of the tests that they conducted, and it has a quote here from William Ford, who's a professor at University of Colorado at Boulder. And Ford, it says, is one of 17 CU Boulder Physics Department faculty, postdoctoral researchers, graduate students, and technicians involved in the project. And he says, today was a very significant milestone. We could not be more excited about the results, says Ford. The project and the measurements we have begun making have huge implications for our graduate students. These students will be getting real data they can work with to make new discoveries. Later on, he's quoted. He says, "This is a very exciting project. We are on the frontier of energy." He says, "This is a different guy who's quoted. It's John Cumulat, another member at CU Boulder's LHC team." It says one target of the effort is to find evidence of the elusive Higgs boson, a theoretical elementary particle that has been predicted by physicists and is believed to hold clues to the mass of matter. And he says, this is a very exciting project because we are on the frontier of energy, says Cumulat. This project undoubtedly holds some very big surprises for us over the coming months and years. 16 years in the making, the 3.8 billion LHC project involves an estimated 10,000 people and staff from 60 countries. So there's 23 countries that are actually signed up, but then there's staff from 60 countries, including more than 1,700 scientists, engineers, students, and technicians from 94 American universities and laboratories, supported by the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Science and National Science Foundation. The United States is providing about $530 million primarily for the LHC detectors. And that was from originally printed on a colorado.edu website. And I still don't see the exact date. But, you know, regardless, though, that should shed some insight into, you know, the nature of CERN and what it's used for. And based off of what I've read, you know, if anybody out there knows anything different, please comment and let me know. But from what I've read about it, you know, it seems like it's strictly being used for research. And then there's all these other countries that have signed up with CERN, and probably more that are going to be signing up with CERN, that would be using research for their own nuclear energy programs. And I think that ties in to, you know, what all this smart technology is being used for. And, you know, just going back to this blog post, you know, in terms of tracking technology and things like that, the next part of the post is on 23andMe. It's titled 23andMe Data Collection, or DNA Collection. And it reads, Susan Wojcicki's family members have been in the public spotlight as well for their own successes. Her sister, Anne Wojcicki, co-founded the private biotech company 23andMe, which specializes in DNA testing and analysis. Under the legal section on the company website, 23andMe admits to storing genetic data and sharing it with other third-party entities. According to Scientific American, 23andMe is terrifying, but not for the reasons the FDA thinks. In 2013, 23andMe and the FDA were having issues regarding regulation. The FDA had concerns with the accuracy of the testing and requested additional information. Suddenly, 23andMe brazenly decided to go rogue. They ceased communications with the FDA and stopped complying in the investigation, as if answering to a government agency was inconsequential. Eventually, the investigation was brushed over, as well as the especially disconcerting main concern. The primary intention of their personal genome service is not delivering a medical device to consumers, but rather to fulfill a fantastic project of gathering massive genetic information on an unknowing public. Consider the evolution of Google throughout its lifespan. Google founder Sergey Brin married Anne Wojcicki prior to her 23andMe launch, and unsurprisingly, their companies have much in common. Both seem to have a constant, unquenchable thirst for collecting enormous amounts of data on a currently unaware and naive public. In the beginning, Google claimed it was simply a useful tool for the public to use and would not store or share our data. As we discovered, they were selling information from the beginning to the highest bidder and created a massive consumer database. 23andMe follows the same tactic of initially denying any wrongdoing, followed by eventual admission of just the opposite. 23andMe board member Patrick Chung tells Fast Company, quote, "Once you have the data, it does actually become the Google of personalized healthcare," unquote. The connections appear to run deep between Google and 23andMe. This business relationship, including everything from genetic information collecting to storing billions of internet users' data, is worrisome, to say the least. And then, I don't know, do either one of you have anything you want to kind of discuss on that note?
I think that, like, I mean, like, discuss exactly what, just to be clear.
Well, in terms of the connections with 23andMe and data collection and the ethics associated with that in terms of privacy and
Yeah, Facebook.
unwitting.
Yeah, Facebook has gotten in trouble with the whole data state stuff, and so I mean this is going to be lots of problems. I predict more down the road, because if Facebook can get caught doing it, I don't think it's going to be very long before we find out like all the major tech companies are doing it.
Yeah, and I think they have been too, for quite some time. There's the Edward Snowden and all kinds of Assange published their what is it called? I linked to it in the low bar of my last video. Google search. The transhumanist singularity is what it's called, where I film this display in Home Depot on Google smart homes, and it's called there's Google is not what it seems. That's what it's called. It's from a book Assange wrote, called When Google Met WikiLeaks, and he gets into the background, how Google was created, and it was basically a government project, and as far as collecting genetic data on everybody, and how that ties into like the whole AI God kind of idea that they're pushing, listening now. Okay, I think that E. Michael Jones has a lot of good points on the kind of rejection of logos that's inherent to the to Judaism, or the rejection of Christ as the Son of God. Same thing, because Christ is Logos, and how it leads to things like worship of an AI god, or this kind of transhumanist global religion that they seem to be pushing. They meaning a lot of people who are not just Jews, obviously, but people who are tied into the globalist kind of technocratic elite community, so to speak. And actually, Analytic Alchemist, you and I had discussed the all these kind of smart housing, big kind of low income housing projects that you've been seeing around the Boston area, right?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I just wanted to backtrack a bit, and comment on the data mining situation. Basically, just a side note, if people thought that the NSA was bad enough, or the TSA was bad enough, with violating your Fourth Amendment rights, then this is going to be 10 times worse. So, from a constitutionalist point of view, those rights just, they don't really exist anymore, under such a technocracy, as you call it.
Yeah. Oh, and just if I could just interject really quick before I forget, I wanted to bring this up earlier. Please, 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 if you haven't already discovered it, check out Truth Stream Media's channel. Arran and Melissa Dykes. They do a phenomenal job of kind of exposing a lot of this, and kind of laying out how it's all been implemented for decades, and Jan Irvin has also done extensive research on weaponized anthropology, and how that all directly ties in with this as well. But so anyway, keep going, Analytic Alchemist. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make that quick comment. Basically, yeah, it's just a massive violation of people's Fourth Amendment rights, the right to privacy, and the right to resist unreasonable search and seizures. Yeah, that won't exist anymore, pretty much. So there's that. Pardon my.
Never really existed a lot with the state involved anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my libertarian side shining through there. But yeah, you wanted me to talk about, what was it, the smart technology that's being tested here in Massachusetts, or what was it again?
It was you and I had discussed offline the smart housing you've seen there, the all these smart housing projects for low income people.
Yeah. So in my general area, I noticed that a lot of the classical houses, right, as they were built in the early 1900s and so on, are being destroyed and replaced with the high-rise condos, and the and they all come equipped with like the smart technology and whatnot. Like they have doors that won't open unless you have like I think it's like a scannable badge, or a chip on. I think it might be your ID or one of your credit cards or something like that. Or they have they come with the smart TVs, and it's interesting, but it's it's also concerning a bit too, because mostly because when they destroy people's homes and they kick them out of their homes that they've been living in for possibly generations at a time, if they're not able to afford the new homes that have been built in their place, then they're screwed. It's gentrification on steroids, essentially. And it's ironic because they are calling it affordable housing, right? But rarely rarely is it ever actually an affordable thing. And so it's I think it's extremely detrimental to poor people and people of the middle class. So from just from a socioeconomic point of view, there's that. But from a more, I guess, political point of view, I don't think I don't think we should be too hasty in accepting this new technology, mostly because of the invasiveness. We've covered that a bit, though, and then there's also the how it ties into, I think anyway, depopulation, because the whole idea of sustainable living, as Agenda 2030 puts it, is to alleviate the Earth's strains, right? Humans are polluting it, which they are to an extent, and the fault is mostly put on humans, and so the idea is like, hey, maybe we need less humans. Maybe we need to trim the flock, so to speak, and maybe we need to start replacing fossil fuels with more green friendly technology, and we can herd everyone into these kind of smart cities, right? And do away with off-grid living and big families and things of that nature. And so yeah, there's that aspect of things that I think we should probably pay a little more attention to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I went off the rails on that or not.
Well, no, I mean, you brought up some good kind of points, some good topics of discussion also, and what I had brought up in our conversation also, was that it all now, again, just referring to Jan Irvin's work and his research, all of his videos on weaponized anthropology, which you can find on his website. It's, I believe, logosmedia.org. I'll link to it in the low bar. But, and it's something I had discovered also many years ago. There's a great kind of lesser known, come on, where are you? A great kind of lesser known timeline that I like to refer to. And it's on virginia.edu's website, called LSD, Mind Control and the Internet. And it's I think it's a nice timeline. Starts from 1942 and goes all the way to let's see, where 1988, like the Rand Corporation and all these players involved in essentially weaponizing the internet. And
hey, sorry to interrupt. Can I bring up one more point that I forgot earlier?
Oh, please do.
Sorry. I was going to say from. I also wanted to include the a more, economical approach to this situation, and that's just the consider also the replacement of human jobs with robots. I'm seeing
Yeah.
a lot of that in my area as well, as things become more automatic. It, you know, I've seen like cleaners at stores replaced with bots. I've seen, there's the self checkout stuff that's kind of weeding out the need for, human cashiers. There's, as much as I, you know, don't like banks, there's also the whole, ATMs and, weeding out the need for human bankers and tellers, and the list goes on. And so,
They've
Yeah.
also replaced politicians with robots. Oh wait, that's always been the case.
Yeah. The main
yeah.
the
But
main
when they do
goals of
that, we
the
won't be able to
tech.
tell the difference.
Yeah, the main goals of the technocracy movement is to replace politicians and businessmen with scientists and what is it, engineers? I think. Can't remember.
Yes.
I think that was it. But
Well,
I wanted to bring up Gregory Bateson though, because Gregory Bateson developed the double bind theory, and still very a very unknown topic with a lot of people, and and then the idea that, not the idea, but again, that's why I strongly recommend checking out Jan Irvin's research into this, because the way he put it was that the CIA basically turned it into a political agenda. And it's described here on, again, I hope my screen sharing is working right, but I'll just read it. It's described as a dilemma in communication in which an individual or group receives two or more conflicting messages, with one message negating the other. A situation in which successfully responding to one message means failing with the other, and vice versa, so that the person will automatically be put in the wrong regardless of response. And the person can neither comment on the conflict, nor resolve it, nor opt out of the situation. A double bind generally includes different levels of abstraction in orders of messages, and these messages can be stated or implicit within the context of the situation, or conveyed by tone of voice or body language. Further complications arise when frequent double binds are part of an ongoing relationship to which the person or group is committed. Double bind theory is more clearly understood in the context of complex systems in cybernetics, because both human communication and the mind function similarly to ecosystems. That's from a article by Gregory Bateson and someone called L. Ezabale, called Cybernetics and the Social Behavioral Sciences. Complex systems theory helps us understand the interdependence of the parts of a message and provides an ordering of what to the Newtonian looks like chaos. And of course, logos is and the trivium method, that's grammar, logic, and rhetoric, is kind of the I hope I'm explaining it correctly, but kind of the antithesis to chaos and postmodernism, so to speak. And the globalist agenda, from what I've discovered, seems to be rooted in postmodernism and kind of a sort of chaotic kind of double bind. And the idea that we're all this one big happy global family and we can all live under this one world borderless, peaceful coexistence global system. But then at the same time, they hire all of these social scientists through all of these different academic institutions and professional institutions and such to break everyone down into all these little groups. You know, and now it's got to the point where there's, 72 genders. And all of these various racial categories, and, you know, it just goes on, and it almost seems never ending, you know?
Did you just assume how many genders there are?
Well, you know,
Eddie,
I always thought there was 2, right? Oh, wait, oh, I'm sorry. I'm confusing gender with biological sex, huh?
well, I mean, you know why the reason why they're doing this, right? It's a way to socially construct, what do you call it, like racist problems, because confusion breeds bigotry. So the more confusing something is, the more people will rebel against it. Initially, because we as humans want to have a coherent picture, and the more like things get out of control and get more bigoted and stuff like that, the more people will want the state.
Yeah, and yeah, right, exactly, and then, you know, in the sense of just dividing and conquering, right? You know, it's like when you have, you know, it also ties in with victimhood, because, you know, when you have all these different groups of people divided up into all these different groups, you know, they can also be victims of other groups. They can also be, you know, they can also get protection from the government more easily, and the government could also keep control more easily over everyone. You know, that feeds into this anyway. And
the irony is that they sort of socially engineer these problems in the first place, and then they'll offer their solution, quote unquote, right? It's the Hegelian dialectic stuff. And like you said, I mean, when you have all these different subgroups existing, supposedly coexisting, right, according to the state, and they're all, they've divided themselves based on race, gender, etc. It literally opens up the doors for more, quote unquote, like discrimination, right? More racism, and things of that nature. And then you have all these, these subcultures, even, right, at war with each other, and then they turn
it kind of creates this perpetual conflict. So so all the people in charge
are going to want to turn to the state and say, hey, we need your help with policing all of this chaos. And that's when they come in and they gain even more control over people.
Right.
And it's like the LGBTQ community and all of them, they sort of act as sort of like a filter of the state. Because what happens is they make things so confusing that we naturally would want to seek like the higher ups in the authority, and we'll go to them because they apparently have the knowledge, and then they eventually go to they'll go to the state reporting these problems in order to, quote unquote, get protection. And really what the government's doing is just feeding their information to them, which they just appeal to the masses. So you really got one line from the government pumping out propaganda in order to, further their own interest, all in the name of inclusiveness, quote unquote.
Yeah, like the religion of religion of what's the word?
Statism.
Well, no, it's different than that. It's tolerance. You know, like they're turning tolerance into a religion, and then they're like weaponizing it, because you know, and if you
Quote, you have to
criticize
remember this.
anything that has to do with the overall narrative, then you're going against their kind of religion of tolerance. You know, like you know, your hate.
You have to remember, though, that like the more and more they push for equality, the further and further they get away from nature, because equality doesn't exist in nature. The relationship between a lion and a zebra is very unequal.
Yep. Yeah.
And, and so, like, the more that they keep trying to force all this equality, but they're not even doing it through, like, because think about it, if it was truly equal, like, you wouldn't need the government. Like, Jews, how many times have been screwed over by people, and yet they've come out on top every time, and and a lot of times in spite of the government. Like, so true equality wouldn't need the state to interact with it. It would just happen through the culture. But we don't see that. Like, they have to, like, you know, it's all just indoctrination and just fighting for this whole purpose of extending the state's power over people.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're of the mindset that there is a clear sort of teleology in nature, that there's a set way things are meant to be, then you are labeled a bigoted and a sexist, and a homophobe and all this other jargon, right? Like,
and I always tell them, I hate all people. I hate all people equally. So whether you're gay, straight, bi, black, white, yellow, red, or whatever, I hate you.
yeah, they're not sure what to do with Mr. Brass. They're still trying to figure that out. Not much propaganda that can be used against this guy here. Yeah, I mean, now I think a lot of people get it confused, right? Like, there's a quality of outcome, and then there's just this sort of overarching equality, quote unquote, which says that every person should be treated, well, not just treated the same way, but every person's outcome should be the same, right? Whether it's for like physical activity or intellectual exercise or whatever it is, we should all just